Hi, welcome to the Gamesplainer. I'm Jeff the Gamesplainer, and today I'm Gamesplaining Teotihuacan, City of Gods. Now this game has a fair amount of setup and a fair amount going on, but once it's kind of traveling, it travels fine. It feels relatively straightforward and you kind of get an understanding of it as you're playing. So this game is set up as a two-player game. You'll notice there are 4 dice out. They are for various other aspects. So when you're playing a 3-player game, you put one other color out. When you're putting a 2-player game, you'll put 2 other colors out for one of the aspects. On a normal turn, you have 3 options. You can either collect cocoa, worship, or perform a main action. Majority of the game, you'll just be performing those main actions. What worship looks like, with both worship and your main actions, you move one of your dice in a clockwise direction, 1, 2, or 3 spaces. So what worship looks like, for example, is if I move this one 3 spaces, or let's go 2 spaces just to this one, I put it into this little locked spot. You'll notice that there's lock spots there, there's 3 lock spots on that place, there's one over there, one there, and one here. What that now enables me to do is I can do one of the actions here, which is moving up one of the tracks. Some of the lock spots were just blue, which is talking about the blue pyramid. The others green, red. This one allows me to choose which of those 3 I wish to move up. So I may, move up that one, which will give me 1 more cocoa. Or I could do the action below, which is basically taking the card. If I wish to do both actions, I can spend a cocoa to do the top action and then do the bottom action as well, which is taking that token. There's a little cost in the top left corner, so they'll be paying 1 log, and that goes into my lineup. I'll talk about what that does in a moment. That will then get replaced from the deck, and we continue on to see how the player's turn. That is worship. Now that die is now stuck in that location until we do an action which my entire turn is unlocking everything that's locked. So if I've got 1 die locked, I've still got 2 dice that can move around, or 2 guys that can move around the board. I probably want to wait until I need to get those guys back to do the unlock action. The other thing that I can do is called collect cocoa. If I were to, say for example, move to this one, what I'm doing is I'm counting the other colors currently on the board. So the color I'm putting in doesn't count. There's 3 colors there, which all 3 of them count. And that tells me I would gain 3 cocoa for going there. And that's all that turn looks like. That's the basics of the game. If I've got more than 1 die of the same color, it only counts as 1 color. The third action, and this is really the main action of the game, is performing that main action. So what your main action looks like is still moving in that clockwise order. You have all of these different areas that you can go to. Each of them does something slightly different. So to start with, we'll talk about this area. Now, this area, and this area, they are numbers 2, 3, and 4. All do the same thing with different products. So if I move 1 guy in, he is at a level 1, which means I am taking 1 cocoa. That symbol means that I will age the guy that's moved in there, or the guy that's taking that action. If I then, on a future turn, 1, 2, 3, move this guy in here, I get to use this line. Of course, there's 2 guys in here, which gets me 1 log. Now, the reason I used the number 1 instead of number 2 is because we always use the lowest number present on the space. I then age one of the dice. I can choose to age this one or this one, which is just turning that over because if I moved a 3rd die into that spot because it was available, I'd be using the bottom row and I'd age 2 of the dice. It doesn't have to be the die that moved in, it can be that die though. And that's the same in each of those other 2 corners, just with slightly different products. This spot here, you're locking a die in to one of the locations. So this is the Royal Palace. You're only allowed to place your die in one of these 3 spots. You can spend an extra cocoa to get the card or the tile that's there, but you also get that. These are going to change depending on how you set the game up. I've set the game up as the basic. There are a whole bunch of cards that go over the top of things. So I'm not going to go through what each thing means. You can look that up very quickly in the rulebook. So that's gaining stuff. Let's move over to this one. You're aging your die that's going there. You'll then say, for example, the black die got there. If you've got a single die, you're dealing with the top 3 spots. If you have 2 dice, you have the option of going to the bottom one. It's going to cost you 1 gold for each of these 3 or 2 gold for each of those. If, however, you would send a 4 or 5, you could use the bottom ones instead of the top ones, but you don't get to age the die or one of the dice. And what they do is they give you ongoing benefit. So number 1 goes there. He might spend 1 of his gold to put a cube there. That now means that every time he goes to one of those 3 spots I was talking about earlier, which is the income, he will also get an extra item of what is available at that spot. So if he were to send 1 guy here and get the cocoa, he would also get a log. If he would send 2 guys in, so he might get 2 logs, normally he would get 3 logs, etc. Now we come down to these 3 areas. So this area is talking about building here. What you get to do when you come here, if you use 1 guy, so just move 1 die across, it will age, and you'll get 1 of these tokens to add to the pyramid. Now, you can add to the bottom level for 2 stone, and you'll get 1 point for doing that. You can add to the second level for 2 stone and 1 log, but you get 3 points for doing that. If there's a 3rd level available, or you're able to build onto a 3rd level, then you'll have to pay 2 stone and 2 log, but you'll get 5 points. If you have got all the way up to the 4th level, it'll cost you 2 stone 3 log to put 1 of the tokens in, but you'll get 7 points for doing that. Now the other thing you're looking at is what these markings are. Every marking that you cover up will get you a point. So if I was to put that in like that, this one is covering that one, which gets me 1 point. If I put it in this way, that one will be covering that, which would get 1 point. If I put it onto the 2nd level, this one's covering that one's covering that one. So it's 2 points for going to there. That costs 2 stone and 2 logs to do that. But what I've managed to do is get 5 points. So we'll push the 5 there. It's obviously costs him the 2 stone and the log to do it. He gets another point for each matching symbol. So he'll get another 2 points. And then because he has put a red or orange face in, and it's covering a face, it doesn't have to be an orange face that's covering, it could be a black one, but if face is covering face, so he gets points for it, he will then also get to push forward on that track, and that would give him 1 more point. So there's an awful lot of points potentially available for players who use that space and are able to pay for the goods to be able to put the blocks in. Now notice that you cannot put a block over a gap, it has to be totally covering, and notice that the blocks below, they kind of show you the outline for where those blocks can go. The next one round is about steps on the pyramid. So by going here, he'll spend 3 gold to do this, which is 3 gold there. He'll get 3 points. 1, 2, 3. He'll choose one of these 4 stairs available. Those 4 stairs can only be placed in one of those 4 spots at the moment. I believe they call them decorations. Once there is a step here, you can then place a step there. You cannot, or a decoration, you cannot do a decoration there unless there's one on the level below. And obviously you can't put one here because there's no brick on the second half. So he might put that in as a decoration, which gets him 3 points for adding the decoration. Because he's put the matching symbols over the top of matching symbols, that's another 2 points. So there's another 2 points. And because one of these is of the blue color, he pushes up that level, which in this pyramid, it gets him a good of whatever type he likes. So he might take a stone. Now, with both of those 2 spots, whenever you do the action or add something to it, you're going to push along this track. This track is really important because that's going to give you points at the end of the first phase. There are 3 phases in the entire game. So when we get to the end of the first phase, however long you are on this track multiply it by that number will give you a certain number of points. At the moment, he's got 10 points coming his way because he's done 2 things on the pyramid, and each of those things is worth 5 points. Once that's done, we then replace the good, and obviously we have the upgrade as well. If you were to send 2 guys there, one of them would upgrade and you'd get a gold. Then the other spot, the only other spot I haven't touched is this one. And what this one allows you to do is it's cost you 2 wood, and you take the house that's furthest at this end, so we're still worth 5 points each, and you go on one of these levels. So he's only put one guy here, which means he's putting on the top level. If he was putting a second guy, he'd go here. Now you get the points of whatever you're covering up. So if there's one guy, the first one in will get 3 points. If you had 2 guys there, it'd be 5 points. If you had all 3 guys there, it's worth 7 points. Now if this entire row's filled up and he has 3 guys, he would get start putting stuff on here. If, however, this entire row is filled up and he's got a single coming in, he cannot add that on anymore. So that would give him 3 points. 1, 2, 3. Once again, that powers him up, so you've got that symbol there as well. It also pushes him up that track. So there's a lot of stuff going on. This guy, the next time he does something, so he goes here, he'll take 2 gold, so they go in his pile, so it's a 5. There's only one guy there, so he takes 2 gold. He would then push that up to a 6. Now, what happens when you become a 6 is that you do a thing they call ascension. You put that die back on the temple at a level 1, or a number 1. You push that token down. That token is going to be moving down at the whenever we get back to the first player, or just before the first player goes, each time. So there's a certain number of tracks. When this gets to here, we have an end of round scoring. But with ascension, you push it down an extra 1. You then take one of these bonuses that's around here. So it's either move up one of the tracks on here, take 2 cocoa and add an extra die, and that die gets added into the palace. Spend 3 cocoa to do 2 movements up this track, get 5 points, or get 5 cocoa. Now, as soon as this travels over the top of that, we have an eclipse, which is basically a scoring point. So to start with, whatever the lowest number on this track is, multiply that by wherever your token is along this track. This is called the Avenue of the Dead. So red gets 5 points, black gets no points. Then the player who's furthest along on the pyramid track, which is this one, will get 4 points. That's another 4 for red. Then they score for each step. So red is 2 steps in. So as this is the first scoring round, he gets 4 points times 2, which is 8 points total for that position. So that's 17. We then reset the pyramid track back to 0. Each player then organises their masks into sets. And you get a point if there's one, which there is at the moment. If he had 2 different masks, it would be worth 3 points to him, 6, 10, 15, etc., up to 28 if you can get all 7 different masks. If you have 2 of the same mask, you're starting a different set, so you get 1 point for the second mask. Once that's all happened, you then have to pay salary. Paying salary is for each die that you have working. This die here doesn't count for anything. Red has 4 dice out, so he will have to pay 4 cocoa. If any of those dice that are out are showing a 4 or 5 on the power, then they are going to cost 2 cocoa. If they're showing a 1 through to a 3, they cost 1. So red would have to pay 4 cocoa for that, because he's got 4 dice out, all showing 1 to 3. And black would have to pay 3 cocoa, because he's got 3 dice out, all showing 1 to 3. If you're unable to pay that cocoa cost, you're losing 3 points for every cocoa you're not able to pay, down to a minimum of 0. You don't go to negatives on this game. And then we pick out 2 things for each of the other colour, the dummy colours, and move them to somewhere else to start the next round. Reset the white back to 0 and move the black back 1. So each round gets slightly shorter as the game goes on. Look, I think that's all there is to Teotihuacan. I hope that it's made sense and you're able to get this to the table. If you'd like to see a playthrough of the first section of the game, please go on and watch my Gamesplay. If you have any comments or suggestions, please write them below. If you have any games that you would like to be Gamesplained, please shoot me an email at thegamesplainer@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter at thegamesplainer to keep up to date with the games I'm playing. Subscribe to my videos to keep up to date with the games I'm gamesplaining. And until next time, enjoy gaming.